Guys. Alrighty. Today is Thursday somehow. I don't know. Seems like this week has flown by super fast, but it's Thursday, so tomorrow's Friday. Yay! So that's good. All right. So today for math, we were working in 10.4. That's 363 through 364. Or you know what? Actually, I take that back. There was a problem I wanted to do yesterday that we didn't get to, so I actually backed it up a bit. So we actually did, let me change this. We actually did 362. Okay. So 362, we did number 10. So 362 number 10 says that there are 146 students. So let me pull this up so you can see what I'm doing here. All right, so we have some people, they're going to the theater. So there are 146 students going. There are 5 teachers. And there are 8 chaperones. So maybe some parents or something like that, some aunts or uncles or who knows, extra people. All right, so all these people are going to the theater. Well, I've got a bunch of people, and the next part starts talking about they're reserving seats. They need to reserve the entire rows. Each row has 8 seats. How many rows do they need to reserve? Well, before I can even get to any of that, there's a little bit of a hidden question in here where I need to know how many actual people are going. So, just like if this was a real story where, let's say all 4th grade's taking a field trip, the theater would say, okay, well, how many total people are coming? Before we could find out how many actual rows and seats and things like that we need. So we would add up, okay, we've got this many students, we've got this many teachers, we've got this many extra helpers that are coming, and we would give them a total. Well, to find a total, you have to add. So I know that 6 and 5 is 11, plus 8 more is 19. 4 and 1 is 5. And this one here, I'm going to bring that down. So there is 159 total people. And I'm going to go ahead and put this into a strip diagram because I know that this is my total here. Excuse me. All right, so there's 159 people. All right, so the next part of the information says that they've got to reserve seats. So like when you go to the theater, they have all these, they're reserving rows. So they have all these rows, and when you go and you take a big group like this, you want all the rows to be together. So they're going to reserve certain rows so that all of their people going can all stay together. So they're going to reserve, and every time that they reserve a row of seats, there are 8 people that can sit in that one row. So if I take my 159 people, I'm going to take 8 of those people, and I'm going to say, okay, you guys are all going to sit together in one row. Then I still have a lot of people left because now I'm at 151. So I'm going to say, okay, we're going to need 2 rows. Okay, that's only 16. I'm not making very much progress, so this is going to take a while. So there's going to be quite a bit of rows that we need. So I could sit here and I could do -8, -8, -8, -8. Or I could speed it up a little bit and I can just divide. So my plan to solve this is going to be to take 159 people, and I'm going to divide this by the number that can go in each row. And what that's going to give me is it's going to tell me the number of rows that I need, okay, so that I can fit all these people. So let me set up my problem. My large number goes on the inside. We're going to make our box. Whoop. And my small number goes on the outside. And I'm going to make my lines. So I'm going to split this all up. And I'm doing groups of 8. I'm going to put my multiplication symbol right there in the corner to help me. And I'm going to come over here to the side and I'm going to think about what those groups of 8 are going to look like. So one row is going to be 8 people. If I have 2 rows, that's 16. So when I go from one to the next, I'm just adding an additional 8. So 3 groups would be 8, 8, and 8. Or 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 6 is 48. 56. And I'm just going to keep going and making my list. Okay, I may need more later, so we'll see. And then I can always add more. So my first one, my first box here, I only have 1. So if I just have 1, I cannot make any groups of 8. So there are 0 groups of 8 with only 1. So then I'm going to make that, I keep calling it the letter C because that's kind of the motion that you go around. You start with the number that you put on top, you go around in the letter C, come back to your box, and that's what you're multiplying. 0 times 8 is 0. Then you subtract, and this 1 right here, this 1 represents after you've made your groups of 8, this is the leftover. So the 1 is how much you have left over after you made those groups. We couldn't make any groups, so that's why we have 1 left over. Now the 1 that we have, we're going to regroup it over here with the 5 to the tens place. Now I have 15. So I'm not going to draw 15 dots because remember, I'm dividing. I didn't want to do all that repeated subtraction. I'm trying to do this in a reasonable time here. So these groups of 8 are going to help me know that 15 falls right in between here. So if I only have 15, I can't go to 2 groups. I don't have enough. I've got to stop right here at 1 group of 8. So that 1 group that I'm able to make, I'm going to put it on top. And then I'm going to go start with the 1 that I put, and I'm going to go all the way around back to my box. And that's what I'm going to multiply. 1 times 8 is 8. Then I'm going to say, okay, I made that 1 group of 8. How much would be left over? So I'm going to subtract. And 15 minus 8. I'm not gonna do. I don't want you to do a bunch of regrouping and all that. I want you to take 8, put 8 in your head, and then just count on with your fingers. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that's 7. Then I want you to circle that 7. And I want you to think, okay, that's what was left over, so I have to move that leftover to the next box. And now I have 79. So I for sure did not make enough over here. I did not make enough groups of 8. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 times 9 is 72. 8 times 10 is 80. All right, so now that's enough. Now 79 is not on my list, but I know that it's between 72 and 80. So I'm going to go with 72 because I don't have 80. I've got to stop at what I at least have here. So that was 9 groups. If I count, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 groups. The groups that I have goes on top. And 9 groups of 8 is the same thing as 9 times 8 is 72. I subtract. After I made those 9 groups, remember I was starting with 79, so there's going to be some that were left over. So 79 minus 72 is 7. And there are no more boxes. So what that 7 means is that's the remainder. Now let's look at what we have. So remember when we said that 159 divided by 8 was going to tell us the number of rows that we have? Well, our answer that we got is 19 remainder 7. Now, 19 of remainder 7 doesn't really, that's not a answer that describes how many rows, right? Because there's some left over here. So when we get those leftovers, we really need to stop and we really need to think, how do these numbers connect back to the story? So 19 is the amount of rows that I have so far, but this 7 here comes from this original number, and this original number, the 159, that represented the people. So what this means is I can make 19 rows. So if I have 19 rows, that's 1. This is what it would, I don't want you to do this because this is too much, but I want you this is what you should be thinking in your head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way. You're going to make that 19 times, okay? 19 times, 19 of those boxes. And in every single one of those rows, 8 people are sitting, okay? So all of these rows were able to fit all 8 people. You're going to do that 19 times. But then you've got these 7 people that don't fit into that. They were left over. They were extra. But you can't just say, okay, 7 people, I'm sorry, you don't have a place to sit. What you do is you get them their own row. So you add an extra row, and instead of filling up all of the seats, you're going to just fill up 7 of the seats, and one of the seats in the row would just be empty. So when we go back to the question, and the question says, how many rows must they reserve? They're going to reserve not 19, you have to bump it up. So this is one of those problems where you take your quotient, your answer, and you have to add 1 to make sure you have enough seats for everybody. So these extra 7 people, they want to see the show too. So instead of having 19 rows, we're going to bump it and we're going to have 20 rows. Okay, so 20 is our answer. All right, so that was one of those interpreting the remainder questions. These are very, very popular on those big tests because you really have to think about the story, and they're not too hard if you really just think about the story and like what it would look like in real life and really visualize like this, what's going on, and you really know, okay, that's 7, and you really think about, okay, what does that 7 go with from the story, and you really make those connections. It makes it a lot easier to think and to solve, because then you would know, okay, I can't have just 7 people standing. I need to get an extra row for them. So you bump it up to 20. All right, so that was what we did in math today. Students' independent work was 366, 15 through 20. So they worked on that. While the small groups, I worked with I actually worked with group A and C today. Group A worked on these daily review questions. Group C, we looked at some of the questions from the independent work, kept practicing with that division. And then that was what we did for math. When students are done, they needed to go to eSpark and do some practice on there. Then for reading today, we continued our lesson on theme. So if you go here to Seesaw, and you go down here to reading whole group activities. Open up mine. All right, so we went down here. All right, so we're on Thursday. So today we read two stories, and we saw that they have a common, that there was a common theme that both of these stories were sharing. So, story one, I'll let you read that. It's about Prince Matthew. And Prince Matthew, he's got this kingdom. It's his birthday. They're all giving him all these riches and golds and all this stuff, but it's not really what he wants. It doesn't make him happy. Then we read a second story, and in this story on page 13, we have a girl whose name is Etta, and she lives very poor, but she ends up finding something like a genie in the bottle type of story, and she makes this wish, and she wants all these riches, and she gets them, and she realizes that it also doesn't really make her happy. So we talked about how we came up with a common theme that money doesn't buy happiness. And so here, this one, Prince Matthew has all of this money, all of these riches and treasures and things like that. But this evidence right here, it says, so it's talking about how the king, he's getting all excited with all this gold and everything. But it says for Prince Matthew, however, it was the opposite. Each sack of gold placed in his hand only added to the weight on his shoulders. So it really didn't make him happy like the king expected it to for him. Then the same thing here, Etta thought that that's what she wanted, but she soon found out our evidence was here. What she really wanted were the simple days with her kind neighbors, calming walks in her childhood countryside. But unfortunately, those things were no more. So here, that was our common theme that we came up for these two stories, what they had in common. All right, so that was that. So we drafted that, and then students worked on their independent work. So for their reading independent work, they have the read aloud. They should be finished with chapter 4 by today, and then they can go ahead and do, some of them started on the questions, but I have that assigned for tomorrow. So this last page for Friday we'll do tomorrow, but the reading and recording should have been finished today. So that's that. And then same thing, eSpark when they're done. And then for writing today, we also read, continued our book. For writing today, we did another lesson on adverbs. So that is in Google Classroom. And we went down to writing adverbs. And here we worked on this second page. So for this second page, let me zoom in. We continued looking at these, and we did all of the odd problems together. So one mistake that I'm seeing people make is instead of finding the adverb, they're finding the verb. So here, this first sentence, as he came into the restaurant, he casually strolled to his table. So this word strolled, that's the action word, that's your verb. The adverb is describing and giving the reader more information about what that verb is, either how it's doing it or when it's doing it. So it's describing and giving you more information. So he strolled to his table. Casually is the word that describes how he strolled. So he just casually, like he kind of like nonchalantly like walked over to his table. Okay. Same thing on number 3. Several students wishfully waited for the names of the finalists to be called. So the students, what did they do? They waited. So waited is your verb. How did they wait? They waited wishfully. Okay, so that wishfully describes the word waited, or that verb waited. So we did 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13, and then 15, 17, and 19. And then everybody needs to do the even. And then we did this page yesterday. So this page and this page should be done today, and this should be turned in. And again, that's on Google Classroom. And if you see here, I've got quite a bit of people who did not turn that in. So make sure that gets turned in. And then tomorrow we will work on the other one. And then for Seesaw, for our composition, we went here and we looked at this prompt. And the prompt is to write about someone who has made the world a better place. Explain why you think that person is important. And so we talked about how this has two parts. So the first part is we're talking about someone who has made the world a better place. So first we had to pick someone that we think has made the world a better place. Now it's not, you know, if someone in your family is out there doing, like, I don't know, they're inventing something that's going to change the world and the way that we do something, or I don't know, they're doing something that's impacting, everybody, then yeah, we're going to choose them. Some of us are picking something like my mom. Well, if you're picking your mom because she makes the best peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and she works hard for your family, and she tucks you in and reads you a book every night and kisses you on your forehead. Well, she's impacting you for sure. She's super important to you in your life, but that's not impacting the whole world. Okay, so if something is just within your family, that's not really someone I wanted you to pick. I wanted you to kind of think bigger, and think of someone who has really made a difference, um, across not just the country, but like worldwide. Like think, maybe an inventor, someone, someone that's come up with something that's really changed the way we live our lives. And so then you're going to take that person and you're going to explain why you think they are important. We talked again how this is the part that we're still missing. We're still not understanding that we need to describe why they're important. So you should have sentences in your story, in your composition, that have something to do with why you think that person is important. This person is important because they invented the light bulb. Okay. That's important because now when I go into a room, I don't have to use candlelight. I can turn on the light and just flip a switch, and now I have lights through all my house so that when it gets dark, I have a way to see around, and things like that. So you're describing why you think that person's so important. So don't just go give a long laundry list of all the things that they've done, and maybe it's a lot of you are doing like civil right type things, like um, you know, this person fought for this and this person believes this, and that's great, but you have to tie it back to this sentence about explaining why you think that person's important. So that person is important because they're fighting for everyone to have equal rights. Okay, so just changing the verbiage and the way you're writing it, um, that's what I'm looking for. You have to tie it back to these two sentences right here. Okay, so making sure that you've got those reasons all organized before, just really doing that planning beforehand, that brainstorming before you go starting your draft here. So your first draft, you're going to make your introduction. You're going to have your body where you're describing. So in the introduction is where you've got the central idea where you're telling us who is the person that made the world a better place. Then in your body, that's where you're going and you're explaining why you think that person's important. Then at the end, you can put your conclusion where you're going over what we talked about last week, where you're restating that central idea. and you're quickly giving those main points, and then you can end it with a hope or a wish, and then making sure that you go through and you edit and revise and make sure all the sentences and everything that you wrote are sounding good. All right, and then of course checking your spelling and all the punctuation and all that. All right, so we'll work on that more tomorrow. And then after that, for science today, we went to Epic, so epic.com, and we logged in. And we did just a read aloud before we went to library. So if you go to the assignments that I've assigned to you, there's a whole big, huge 68 plus section of, 71, sorry, 71 books of all kinds of weather, water cycle type books, a bunch of them. And the one that we read today, we were kind of jumping around, is this one called Tracking the Weather. And so we talked about, excuse me, we talked about, go back to the beginning. All right, so we talked about meteorologists. This page was going over how, some meteorologists are inside where it's nice and dry, but there's some that are called storm chasers. And they are out on the field tracking weather. They've got all kinds of tools that they use where they're gathering data, and it's helping them make predictions and understand how things that are going on in the sky and everything around us, how it affects the type of weather that we have. Then they take all the information that they gather and they make a weather forecast. So we can watch TV, we can get on apps and things like that and get online, and they give the forecast. So a forecast is that prediction of what they think based upon these, patterns that they see. They will tell us what they think the weather's going to be like. And so they use some pretty simple symbols. They've got these symbols, so it's going to be raining, or that might be snow. I don't know what that is. Let's see, high of 28. Maybe that looks like snow. So it's going to be snowing, then it's going to be partly cloudy. So they give us these symbols to help us quickly see, when you see that, that's what that weather's going to, what that weather means. Excuse me. All right, so modern measurements, it was, this one's talking about starts getting into the different tools that they use. There's satellites in the sky that are constantly taking pictures of Earth, and they're sending that back to our computers here, and those are giving us lots of, when you look on these apps and things like that, um, there's sections on here where you can get these pictures that look like this, and those are different radar, and you can see these patterns. They're moving, and you can track these storms and kind of see if these are headed your way. And if you've got vacation plans, or you want to know what to wear because you want to know what the weather's going to be like later. Especially in Texas, one minute it's cold, the next minute it's burning up. So, I'm constantly looking at radar and these forecasts that these meteorologists are making to help me plan, what to wear and how the day's going to go. And, maybe later on I'll need a jacket, so I want to be prepared. So, all of those are, things that they're using to help us kind of plan for those different types of weather. Whoop, too fast. All right, so this page here is talking about tracking the temperature. So here it's talking about how we use a thermometer. And the thermometer has one side that's the C for Celsius and the F for Fahrenheit. And this line right here, it talks about how the thermometer was built way back in the 1500s. And they realized that with the liquid, when it's warm, it takes up more space, and when it's colder, it takes up less space. So I kind of think about like when I'm warm, I kind of, I want to get up and get moving and do stuff. But when it's cold, I want to kind of like curl up into a small ball and just like be under my blanket and not really do anything because I'm freezing. So I kind of remember it that way. But here, let me make this bigger. All right, I guess that's as big as I can get it. All right, so here it talks about how you can make your own thermometer. And so you've got red food coloring here, a straw, plastic bottle, some Play-Doh to hold that straw in there. And you can see when it's warmer, you can see that water will take up more space versus when it's colder, it's going down. So same thing here. When it's warmer, this line is rising. When it's colder, it's falling down. So these numbers here on the side, we used Fahrenheit. So these numbers here on the side, we can see and we can tell, okay, here's 80. That would be halfway between that and 100 would be 90. So this is 91, 92, about 90. I know those are counting by twos. So 92, 4, 6, so about 96 degrees. So then on the next page, talks about warm and cold fronts and what that means. And this diagram down here shows how a warm front comes in versus how a cold front. So it's different air meeting different types of air. And then this one's all about how recording the rain, different types of clouds. We kind of jump through here. All right, rain gauge, we've talked about these. They collect the rain so we can see how much, how many inches and so on. And then, all right, here's one on air pressure. So we use a barometer to measure air pressure, and it's a tube that's filled with liquid. So here's kind of how you could make your own. And same thing, when air pressure is really high, the air is pushing down on the liquid in the cup. Then the liquid inside the tube is then pushed up. When the air pressure is low, the air does not push down as hard, so the liquid inside the tube goes down. So here this is using a ruler and a straw, and you can see that with your own model there. And then here's what a barometer looks like. That's measuring the air pressure. And then we've got wind vanes, so we can know which way the wind is blowing. And then here you can make your own. This is an anemometer. So an anemometer, it looks like this in real life. It is calculating, so this thing right here will spin. So when the wind is blowing, it's going to spin this around, and the wind kind of gets trapped in these cups and pushes it. And they take the number of rotations, so the number of times it goes around, and they put that over how much time has gone by, and they do that calculation, and that's how they find out what the wind speed is. So sometimes, you'll hear, the wind is moving at a certain mile per hour outside. Well, they're getting that from this information here. So here's one that you can make your own. So they took a pencil with straws and the cups, and they put a pen, and you can put this in front of a fan, or you can go out on a windy day, and you can see this spin around here. And this fact right here, the windiest place in the world is Antarctica. And if you think about it, we've got buildings and houses and school, all these different buildings and trees and all these different things that help kind of block the wind. So in Antarctica, it's a lot, they don't have all that. So the wind is a lot, you can probably feel the wind a whole lot more because there's nothing blocking it from hitting you. All right, so we kind of skipped through here. This one right here was how you can. This is talking about the fronts. So there's another thing you can make there. And then that was it. So we finished, let me click that. We finished that book. And then so here, so then we broke into groups and we had a little bit of, it says dear on the agenda here, so drop everything and read the weather books on Epic. So we had some time here where students partnered up and they picked out one of the weather books and they did some partner reading there. And then they went to library and they had an activity with Miss Pentuso in library. And then for social studies today, there is a link here that you can click to watch. And everybody worked on week 19 when they came back. And then make sure I didn't miss anything. I think that was it. Alrighty, that was our day. All right, so tomorrow is Friday, so that is when everything is due. So please make sure your Monday through Thursday are all cut up. We've got some little short assessment type. They're not for a grade. It's really just kind of checkpoints to see how we're doing on some things. So we'll do that for math and reading tomorrow. And then we'll work on wrapping up some things that we've been working on throughout the week. And that'll wrap up our week 19. All right, you guys, as always, please let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.